So Christian brothers, thank you for joining us. And this week we are joined again by the wonderful Beatrice Caffrey, who has thankfully agreed to join us once more so that we can manage without Colm, who is still away. He's got a family issue that he's tending to, and he'll be back with us next week, I'm sure. So it's not so Christian brother, and I'm generally then being abused by the sisters. We don't have Terry, so unfortunately I'm also having to do all of the audio video stuff. So we'll try our best. Hopefully we get it through, and thanks for your support. So what have we got this week? What's the
I think
story?
it's the very Christian sisters, actually, which you failed to mention, who are allowed to pop in and out every now and again when you feel tired or cranky or, any of the above.
Same parents, different timelines, and united by chaos. Strap in, for the not-so-Christian brothers.
It's a little bit of a funky town, but it's a really good story. And you were telling me that you're going to the Pissings of Rain for a holiday to Spain.
Yes,
And that was what we got to.
And so I need to find something to watch on Netflix. So I was looking for some recommendations.
There's a few good new releasey things. There's about 6 yesterday. I was like, oh, there's some good like thriller ones, lighter ones.
Okay.
I can see you and Justin watching Megan's with Love, where she cooks up a storm with lavender.
I don't think
my
so
God.
at all.
Please, God.
Really? I can
Save
see
me.
you guys having a show like that. Megan with Love, but Justin, J and B with Love.
You didn't see us during the pandemic. We used to do online cooking demos,
No.
live cooking demos.
Stop it.
Justin was my assistant. People found it was hilarious.
Was it sexy or not?
No, it wasn't. No.
What do you mean assistant, like chopping scallions while you were like...
Yeah. Because it was Instagram Live, so I didn't have anybody to talk to. So it was actually good to
funny.
have somebody there
Yeah.
that you could chat to. So you're not just talking to the empty camera.
Sorry, now I know what I'm doing for the weekend. I'm watching those back episodes.
Please don't.
No, please don't. But anyway, listen, before we start here,
Yes.
bitches,
We want you to like, subscribe, and follow.
Yes, and actually the video element on Spotify is so gorgeous because you can put it up
Yeah.
while you're cooking, or you can do it when you're in the gym or something to watch it. The YouTube
Exactly.
we're on. We did very well. We weren't moaning last week about the mental load with couples, but we were talking about the differences and how women experience. And I think there was a clip that went out in social of me saying my girlfriend did an experiment when she left stuff for a week on the stairs. And I had a lovely pal, a male pal, who said, well, Rebecca, I have done the same, where I'm really organized and clean and I've left bundles of stuff at the bottom of the stairs, and my wife, who I love dearly, has not brought them up. So I think we have to like mix our genders up and make sure that we know we're being fair to both.
Exactly.
To which this topic, I think, is really wide, broad and open and not really gender specific. I think it's really just about being a human, and it was something I was thinking about, Beatrice. I thought, let's do it today and get into it. And I think, Justin, you will enjoy this as well, because I think even in the work that you do, because you really help people in life thrive and succeed at whatever they're trying to achieve, or even if they're trying to remove
go.
themselves
He's a little
from
bit too far
something.
away.
He wants this action.
head movement.
And so I think this topic you will find meaty. It's about, are we, when we come out and we're formed in our little brains and our hearts and our body and all of the genetic things that make us up, and you're super individual as Beatrice, I'm super as Rebecca and Justin, are we predestined or predetermined to be, is a heroin addict? Is it their environment? Is it how they were brought up? Is it all of the awful things that have maybe happened to them in their lives or are certain people, more fragile, more predestined to be addicts? Are people who are hugely successful? Is it that they have this great thriving environment, this, wonderful push from their family, privilege maybe, entitled? Is that helping them, or actually is success really about your mindset? We talk about depression being hereditary and the makeup of how we, how happiness affects not everyone, and we're not always happy. But certain people are more predispositioned. We know that scientifically. But I'm talking about like how our lives work out. And were you always meant to be this, or did you change that path? Was I meant to do this, or have I changed the path? And you, Justin, were gorgeously speaking about how you as a child may not have been favored as being like the brightest, most intelligent, most successful, and have now become everything that you wanted to become. And so is that label really dangerous, or does it push you to do it? Or I don't know. It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic. I mean, I think there's multiple layers to this. I mostly believe that a lot of the times people have trauma, and the trauma then generally dictates some bad outcomes. So in particular, where we find people with addiction issues, there's usually trauma in the early phases of their life. But I think what I was saying to you as a kid, so I grew up, being told I was the mistake, which, I don't have a major thing about it. I know we spoke about that, and I want to get your take on that. I don't have a major thing on it, and I think in some ways maybe it actually helped motivate
Is
me.
that male? Is it harder for a woman? Because I think we always feel, is there an essence that women need to feel loved and cared for? And maybe you didn't take that as seriously as maybe a girl being told that a little, and again, I could be wrong, but do girls like feeling liked, loved, needed?
Wanted.
Wanted. And as a boy, you felt, okay, it's not a great thing to say to someone, but you know what, I'm going to push forward because it's okay. That's interesting.
I think potentially. I mean, I know that I became very kind of self-reliant, and I definitely didn't need, or certainly didn't feel like I wanted anybody in my life for a long time. So maybe that was born out of that emotion. But then as a kid, I was chronically dyslexic, so told all the time that I'm really, really stupid. My grades were no good, and I was told to leave school when I was 15, because I wasn't going to achieve. And I would also, have my mother would show me my brother's, including Colm's, school reports. So she'd sit me on the bed and say, "Hey, look, this is what these two did, and why aren't you doing it, dum dum?" And I think again, comparison, it's such a thief of well-being and feeling a sense of self. So I think these things come into play, but also. I also think at some point you eventually have to just own your own shit and build from there. So I don't believe in absolute destiny. I think there's probably multiple paths that you're supposed to be on, and you have some variance in terms of how you get out of it.
But that's not an answer. That's so fascinating, though, about I mean, nowadays, if I was to sit my child down, you'd looked in the window, you'd regard that as abusive. Like if I was to say to Gia, like, you aren't as great as Simone, or Simone, you're not as great as Gia, you would probably go very poor parenting, probably traumatic. And obviously, Rebecca, you're fucking up your children, and how these things were just seen as like, that's parenting and that's how they did it. But I love all of that, but it's not an answer. What you're saying is, I think there's multiple pieces of the puzzle, Rebecca, that'll build you on that path, right? Do you get good therapy if you're traumatized? Does that really assist you on your way? Did you get a great education? Did you get funding or investment into that business model you had? Did you have a really great life partner who helped you? What you're saying is all of those elements. What I'm saying and what I believe, and Beatrice, you might have a completely different take, is that actually no matter what you do, you're pushing against something that really, if you're a failure, you're always going to be a failure. If you don't believe in yourself or love yourself, you're probably always going to end up on your own if you don't. And that's something that I worry about a lot for people who don't have that path.
I think that as parents, we do have to be really careful when, I think to an extent we still do that probably when you have, more so when you have several children, that one will be described, oh, she's the sporty one and he's the academic one. And not as a negative comparison, but just to kind of, parents might say, whatever, she is sporty or he's academic. And that idea stays with you. And it can hold you back in certain ways, so that the one that's not described as the sporty one will maybe not go towards sports later on, whereas they could be really good at it.
Absolutely.
So I think, yes, we're absolutely influenced by that, by what we heard when we were children.
But you don't believe we're stuck in a mold of what, like,
No.
if you look at little Beatrice, you grew up in Germany, right? And maybe, I don't know what you were seen as, but maybe you were all-rounder, or maybe you were particular at one thing. You don't feel now your life has turned out the way it was kind of meant to. No, you feel like you owned, as Justin said, your shit and brought it the way you wanted it to. Like, you took control, right?
I think there are events in your childhood that can totally change your
Derail
life.
and change. Yeah.
So in my case, my dad died when I was 4 years old.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
do?
Yeah, I know I have memories of that. But I think that totally changed my life. I
Why?
probably wouldn't have left Germany.
Okay.
I think I would have been maybe more involved in what he was doing. I think there was more of a drive after school to go abroad and
Why
see
escape
different.
kind of?
Escape also because I grew up in a really small town, so there was no desire really to stay there. Whereas maybe if he had been there, I mean, I'm pretty sure my life would be completely different.
No way.
So I
if
think
he'd been there,
events
you might
like
have had
that.
a pull back. Both your parents would have been together. You might have started, and you would have had that is so interesting.
And and similar to Justin, the way he describes that, obviously, your father was more withdrawn due to depression, etc., and that your mother didn't spend as much time or didn't show as much interest, and that meant that you became more resilient. You became far more independent. So I think those.
So that can be a positive, that negative.
Yeah.
Not getting the attention maybe that you crave as a little kid actually spurred you on to be like, well, fuck it. If I'm not going to make anything in this home of myself, I'm going to do that in the great big world.
Yeah, but I think how we're parented, we all want to be seen, heard, and loved unconditionally. I think that's the kind of basics of human need. And when that's missing, the consequences can be quite detrimental. So there's a small percentage of people who thrive under those conditions, but you start to thrive for a limited period. Like you generally might make it into your 30s or even your 40s, but then you start to kind of unravel and fall apart. And again, it goes back to trauma. And I often thought that a lot of my drive came from that early phases. But actually, I was at a lecture when I was in UCD in my master's, and Dr. Brian Penny, who's a ex-heroin addict,
Incredible man.
was there, and he was giving a talk about how his heroin addiction was born out of him having surgery when he was 2 months old, without anesthesia. So in 1975, well, up until 1985, babies under the age of 6 months predominantly were operated on without anesthesia. So he had surgery where he was cut open and they realigned his bowels and his guts, and they did it whilst tying him down to a bed as a baby. So this trauma then meant that he was always trying to get away from it.
Score.
The body keeps the score. So the amazing thing about that is I had the same operation at the same time.
Yes, you told me about this.
By the same surgeon. And so me and Brian are really good friends, and we're totally nerdy on the neuroscience and psychology of all of this. So the byproduct for me was workaholic and, borderline alcoholic, but, an absolute determination to succeed. Whereas he became a heroin addict. But again, everything is resolvable. My addiction was okay and acceptable by society, whereas his addiction was not acceptable by society. But I still hurt
working
loads
really
of people.
hard for his family. It's okay, and he's just great.
He's building a career and yeah.
Yes, but you're shooting up heroin. Not so attractive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But like workaholics hurt loved ones, hurt
Of
people.
course.
Become very
Are
ruthless,
absent,
determined.
Or ruthless. Yes. It's fascinating that I remember you saying years ago, or I don't know when you said it, you did say something about that, and I was like, oh my God, we have to talk about that someday. And we need to talk about that. That is so fascinating, because that pain, we talk about the body keeping the score, things that have happened to me that kind of only rear their head. And I think the different parts of your body that have been harmed or hurt is where your pain, when you're really low, as well comes out. But when you spoke there about labeling, I find it so interesting, because the label thing is so dangerous. And by the way, we all still do it and we don't mean to do it. Like I could say to you, oh, my pal, she's really sporty. Or I could say Beatrice is sporty spice. But Beatrice is also a homemaker, a caregiver, a communicator, super smart, gorgeous. Like we're not all just that one thing, but we do it, right? It's easy for us as humans. It's much easier to compartmentalize someone and go, Bex is loud, but not Bex is emotional. She's actually introvert. It's just easier to go, she's loud, right? So when you're talking about the labeling, I was thinking there, you're so right, Beatrice, it prohibits in a way, right? So if you're like, Bex is the loud podcaster one. It kind of stops Bex being any of the other things I would like to do. And by saying it to a kid, you know, you're just going to be really sporty in life. And maybe they don't really end up thriving in sports at all. And they've actually missed this whole heap of stuff they could have done, like maths or science or.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened in my childhood. It was like, she's the fun one. She's the joker. She's the sporty one in school. And she keeps everyone together and she makes the house joyous when things aren't and like that's her role. And when that's your role, it's like, fuck, I need to stick to that role. And if you deviate from that role, well, you've derailed the plan.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think even like I often find that my sisters, I think sometimes I feel that they still see me as a bit of a kind of a dumb idiot kid. And over the years, my relationship with my brother, with Colm, we've kind of got to see each other as you know, smart, capable, you know, human beings. And I think, and I don't mean that my sisters are you know, being in any way demeaning towards me. I just think that we all get caught in the nature of how we're supposed to be perceived in the family.
In the family, and the same can be with friends that you've had since childhood. You will always, in their eyes, you will always be that person. But you also
or they say, you've changed.
Yes. But you also have to ask yourself, are you doing the same thing with people? You know, are you doing the same thing with your family members, with friends? Are you always seeing them in the same way? And then when they change, you think, yeah, you've changed.
But how do you change the narrative on the dial? I think it's so interesting you've just said, because I don't know if I know about this. You just said there that you could be a multi-billionaire and you could be running something in NASA, right? Whatever. And your parents might see you as a dum-dum at Christmas, right? Okay, that's just at random. Yeah. That's not the case. And I also wonder, is that your projection, right? And that's just a question. So you might come home and have had the biggest success story and be written about in Forbes, Justin, and they go, oh, he's still a dum-dum, right? Is that not easier for them because then they don't have to see you as something maybe they didn't become? Or is it your projection on what you think? And same with your pal who, you know, our pals who we think we have a role within the group where we're the organizer or the cheerer-upper one or the glam one or the funny one. Is it your projection? And maybe they don't feel that way. Because I often fight back on things. I'm like, well, I'm not that. And people are like, well, we never said you were that. So do we put ourselves in our own box? Is it
do we take that role on
and run with it?
Yeah.
So we're kind of saying our parents traumatized us and called us dum-dums and we caught my sister. Have we kind of also done it to ourselves and without releasing that? Like, I don't think people care enough about us to really give a shit. Like, I often say when I'm in my really insecure mode, because I have a really, really ambitious, successful, driven mode. And then I have this awful imposter mode that I really have to mind because he's like a little beast and he's really unattractive. And I have to keep him here because he can be very dangerous. But it comes out in arguments or things where I'm sad, where I'm like, well, you just think I'm stupid or I'm not going to. And it's the other person will often say to me, well, I actually didn't think or say that, but all of your stuff, that's you. That's on you. So, you know, your thing about your sister or your thing, maybe that's not the case, Justin. And we're always projecting.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, when I say that I think there's narratives in family, quite frankly, I don't care. Like, I'm so not interested in what anybody else thinks about me. And
Why?
I just don't see the
It
point.
doesn't hurt you ever?
Wasting the energy.
No.
It probably could hurt me over time, but I think I've been through enough of my life now that I'm very good at just not caring. I mean, I always love this idea of, and I say this to clients all the time, that you have to say this to yourself over and over again. What other people think about me is none of my business. And I get them to write it on their makeup mirror.
Is that not simplistic? Like, we love you, but if you left this room and we see you as this great person, but if you left this room and Beatrice and I were going, God, he is kind of dumb. That would never happen. But if we were like, God, and like, I think Justin thinks he's better. And like, we were taking you apart. And these are the people that, you know, this is your partner in life and I'm your friend. It wouldn't hurt you to know what people think. I can be very hurt by what people say and think about me because I do take it seriously.
But I think, so the whole thing about how we feel or how we think is determined by our thoughts and our actions. And we can change these things. So yes, I think 10 years ago, I would have been volatile around my emotions and what people think about me. But over time, I've learned, A, to understand don't care and it doesn't have any impact on me. Secondly, most people are not thinking about you because everybody's self-obsessed and thinking about themselves. So it's like, again, a waste of energy. And the last point is that if you want to get into a state of self-determination, you have to seize control of the narrative yourself. So you have to be able to change the way that we talk to ourselves. So how we talk to ourselves is the reason why we get upset. Like somebody says something bad about me, I'm only upset because the voice in my head says, oh my God, they think I'm an asshole. But actually, if the voice in my head thinks, oh my God, they're an asshole, why bother talking about me? I'm too busy. Then you can change it. But that takes time and it's not easy.
And practice.
And practice.
Do you feel the same, Beatrice? Like you're a little bit older than me, not that much, but you are a little bit older than me. Do you feel a bit like what people say is none of your business?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Very much. Yeah. Because I can't.
As a woman, I absolutely adore hearing that. And I'm not doing a gender thing here, Justin, but I'm just saying I think we can be hard on ourselves. I'm not saying men aren't, because we know men go through hell. But I think we do have this thing. And I love that you just said, you know what, Bex, really, if you tore me apart now, that's on you, Bex. Or if your friend tore you apart in a friend group, that's on her.
Even if somebody tells me what they think about me, I can control how I feel about it. I can control my reaction to it. So it's about, everything that happens to you is determined by your reaction to what happens to you.
I love that. Like, it's perception, right? So I was talking about how I could look at my birthday yesterday, which I felt was really awful. And I've never really had, maybe I'm also really privileged because I've never really had an awful birthday. I know people who've lost people on their birthdays, who've had terrible days, sadness. And I'm very lucky. I've had really beautiful birthdays, mainly because I've made them beautiful, right? I've taken a day off work or I've done something for myself. It's not necessarily that I expect the world to wait in me hand and foot, but I had a pretty poor birthday. And it's funny, my perception was that the people in my life didn't really love me or I didn't feel loved. But that's also maybe a story in my head, right? Where it suits me, to feel abandoned, feel let down, feel disappointed, because it suits my story to go, everyone's hurt me, but it's not my fault. And it's maybe this victim mentality. And we talk about predestination and we talk about, are you, who are you? And I've always felt like I was a really strong person. I was third born. I probably wasn't meant to be on this earth, how Justin and I joke. I've made my own little way. I was never seen as someone who was going to be the most successful, the most amazing. And I've made my own little path. But the victim mentality thing, and it's a bit like the dangerous demon, you got to keep a lid on that, right? It's like you saying, I can't control what people say, right?
I can control my expectations.
Oh my God.
But I think on the
That's
birthday,
brilliant. Expectations is one of the most, I think it's one of the most vital things of this conversation. Even when we're talking about our childhood and our expectations of life, growth, career, you're correct, Beatrice.
But I also think on the expectation front, right? If you think about birthdays, it's so much
They
dependent.
suck dick.
Well, only because
You make that louder on the recording, dick.
that was quite loud. But I think as like if you set every birthday up as like this is your most important day and you always have to have it off work and everybody needs to celebrate you and blah blah blah, make it into this big thing, then you become desperately disappointed.
It'd be nice to feel loved, though, right? That's just a simple. I think that's literally just a no-brainer.
I'm not disputing the feeling loved,
Yeah.
but I also think again, if like let's say Beatrice forgets my birthday, I don't think I'd be too. I don't think I'd be like. I'd probably go. Oh, you forgot my birthday, but I don't know. Would I be okay with that? I think I probably would.
Are you saying you don't hold, as in you appreciate, value, and love Beatrice, but you don't hold her? She's not accountable for how you feel about your day. So like, it's not Beatrice's fault the day was fucked. Yes, she forgot. Maybe she had something on, or a huge thing happened in her life, and she forgot. And she says later on, "I'm really sorry," but you didn't hold her accountable for the day. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, because I do really believe, the great Viktor Frankl quote, which is, the space between the initial stimulation and your response to stimulation is where you find your freedom. So if somebody says something mean to me or you guys do a character assassination of me after I leave, if I just take a breath and go, you know what, it's not the end of the world. Nobody's died. I'm okay. I'm going to move on to the next thing. Then we can start to regulate ourselves. But if I immediately always go down the rabbit hole of feeling like I'm the victim in that scenario, then it becomes super tough.
Sure, but why would we do that about someone that we love? And that's where I start to question people in the world and your predestination. Why would...
Because people are assholes.
But why, if you're so valuable, would we take you apart? Do you know what I mean? This is where I start going, but maybe I am a piece of shit.
Well, no, because
Um,
people who in their own right feel, not validated in their world often tend to character assassinate others.
Are you saying hurt
Yeah.
people
because
hurt
they-
people?
Exactly,
Okay.
because they feel like shit.
Mm.
So I think you've got to leave people to their own problems.
So it makes me feel
and
joyous
find
to
your
be
way
like,
forward.
Justin's a piece of shit when you leave.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's
Expect-
easy. Because it's easy to talk negatively about other people
Is it though?
Then
I get
to-
really sad.
than to actually look inwards and figure out maybe what's wrong in your life, in your own life.
Can you please just explain, because I think it's such a smart thing that you said about expectations. Can you just explain it for childhood, for life, for events, for what do you mean by that?
I always remember somebody said that to me years ago. He was kind of trying to get into a relationship with somebody, and he said, but he wasn't getting the response back from the other person. And then he said one day, you know what? No expectations, no disappointments.
But that's kind of crap.
But if
that's
you
kinda
always
crap.
expect something from other people, you can't control what other people give you.
But if you give a lot, right? If you're a giver, right? You set yourself up each day. You schedule
Are
content.
you giving because you want to give or because you want something
But
back?
doesn't everyone want something back from something? It's two-way, right? I know what you're saying. If you do charity work, Rebecca, and you save a life tomorrow and you help a kid in need, you shouldn't expect the world to owe you. I get that, right? But I also get if you pour a ton of work into a project and then nothing comes of that, or you pour a lot of love into someone and they reject, it's really hard. And you're simplifying that by saying, if you have no expectations, it's cool. But that can be hard for people who give a lot.
Yes.
So give less.
Yes. Give less or work on how much you expect to come back.
Or give less of a fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it that way. If it's my birthday, I don't expect Justin to throw a big party. I mean, obviously we've been together for 20 years, so I would think he will wish me a happy birthday.
Yeah.
Everything else, if I want it to be an
Is a plus.
incredible day, I can also decide, well, I can book us a table for lunch or for dinner.
But is this the movies and Instagram? Is this our expectation of why is Justin not whining and dining? Why didn't he get me the necklace like I see other women? Is it that we're looking also around too much at what everyone else is doing
Possibly.
and we're not looking inwards?
We see what everybody else is doing, and so we want the same in our life.
Can I wrap this up?
But
Go on.
just to say, I also think as well in the idea of what you're saying, which is really valid about how much effort you put in, and I'm a giver and I do all these things. I think you also have to bring a sense of some type of peace to reality in life, and that is, I do think you get what you put into the world, but I just don't think it arrives at the timetable in which you wish it came.
That's
right?
interesting.
And I think that's important. I don't think you should stop giving. I don't think you should stop making an effort.
Not everything comes as you...
Exactly. But I think it comes in different ways and it shows up in different ways and through different people in your life. I do think we should be good people in the world, but we should maybe just manage our expectations better.
But that's also a karma thing. It's also like, keep doing this stuff, but also be mindful because that stuff comes back to... Can I close on this though? So we're talking about predestined is how we got into this chat. If you look at your life, Justin, your beautiful family, your lot, there's been highs and lows, you've had a journey. Do you feel a bit like you arrived at what you were meant to, or do you feel it's turned out very differently?
I think it's just evolving all the time. I'm just excited about where it's going.
Are you surprised if you were to look back at 7, 8, 9 as to who you are?
No, I know at 7, 8, 9, I was really clear about how I wanted to be in the world. I was really focused on being different.
Being
I know that sounds
different.
weird, but I really, really had a
You
clear
wanted to
idea.
stand out.
Yeah, I really
Okay.
did.
What about you, Beatrice?
Well, I'd never heard of Ireland, so
No, what? How dare you?
probably somebody said to me, "You're going to live in Ireland," and we're like, "What?"
By
Let
the
me-
sea,
Let me
in
just find out first of
Greystones
all
and
where
make
that
videos.
is.
Seriously, you'd never have seen this life.
I think I knew that I wasn't going to stay in the town where I grew up, and I think from my teenage years there was definitely a draw to be in a different country. But everything else, and like Justin said, also, I don't think this is it yet. I think there's still, who knows what's still to come.
You know, and also your
Still want to
life.
live. One day, I still want to live in New York.
Yeah, but like also your life has changed in a doll because you had 2 children,
Yeah.
and
Again,
there you go. Everything in that whole
we
situation.
wouldn't be living here if that hadn't happened.
Exactly. And I'd have never met you guys, and that's been such a blessing. And I think my life, similarly to Justin, less narcissistic, I always I always wanted to be different, but by different I don't mean like, oh, look at my shiny. But I always knew there was something for me that probably wasn't going to be the mainstream, or I wasn't going to fit in a box of the office job, or I wasn't maybe going to succeed in ways people expect you to succeed. And in ways I'm quite like pedestrian, you know, I'm not that special. I've 2.5 kids, the house, the husband. But in other ways, I feel like I offer something, and I always wanted to bring magic to the world. And I think I'm doing that. Maybe not in the way. Maybe I thought I'd be living in New York as a journalist and having this big highlight, but maybe that wouldn't have made me happy. So who knows?
Maybe
Anyway,
that's still going to happen.
I'm too old.
No, you're not. Don't say that.
Gee, you're old. We're all doomed.
Exactly.
So I think thank you everybody for being here. Thank you, wonderful not so Christian bitch sisters.
Bitches. You
Is that what it is now?
I can't even. Can you dub that?
No, Terry. So please do like, subscribe, and follow. Thank you for being here. We will have an after show, of course, on Saturday, and we want you to like, subscribe, follow, and support.